Well, good morning, everyone, and for Canadian attendees, happy Thanksgiving. My name is Maggie Bolt from the Poirier Group, and I want to welcome you to our session, A Roadmap to the Future of Retail, an exclusive live interview with Giant Tiger. In this session, Paul Wood, the President and CEO of Giant Tiger, and David Poirier, CEO of the Poirier Group, will dig into the pressing questions that many of you have about leading during a pandemic, key strategies for success, and what their future of retail might look like in the months and years to come. There will also be an opportunity for you to ask live questions to these two innovative leaders. So some general housekeeping to cover. This webinar will be recorded and sent to you after the session. If you have questions, you can type them into the chat window on the right sidebar, and we'll do our best to answer them, integrate them into this discussion, or answer them at the end. So first, I would like to introduce our speakers today, David Poirier and Paul Wood. David Poirier is the CEO and founder of the Poirier Group, which is a boutique management consulting firm focused on strategy execution, operational efficiency, and sustainable business transformations for diverse clients across North America. He is an accomplished leader who progressed early in his career to hold senior executive and C-suite roles in major retail, health, supply chain, and manufacturing organizations. David has an ability to create and translate strategic roadmaps into actionable goals that influence organizations. He thrives at running multiple global divisions in complex and ever-changing business environments and affecting positive cultural shifts that impact bottom-line performance.
Well, Maggie, I think we've lost your sound a little bit there.
A customer-centric approach and the passion for the company's core values make him the ideal person to lead Giant Tiger. Giant Tiger is the leading Canadian-owned family discount store committed to providing everyday essentials, family fashion, and household needs to communities across Canada. Canadians can shop at over 250 stores and online at gianttiger.com. The privately held company employs over 10,000 team members and operates its own distribution centers and trucking fleet. All Giant Tiger locations are locally owned and operated by a team member who knows the community. The friendly stores with the iconic yellow logo are not only where Canadians shop more and spend less, but are also proud to be known as a retail of choice. Welcome, David and Paul. I'm going to pass the floor to David, who will then be leading our Q&A.
Thanks very much, Maggie, and good morning, everyone. Really honored to have Paul Wood with us today. We've had the opportunity of working with Paul over the last couple of years and come to appreciate not only his leadership style, but values that he leads Giant Tiger with. Paul, welcome to this session today, and thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, David. Happy to be here this morning.
Terrific. I'd like to start off with a little bit about the unique position that you have in becoming president and now CEO of Giant Tiger, and in your first year ran into the pandemic. Your first year in that role ran into the pandemic. And so as president of Value Retailer, what are your key takeaways that you've learned in your experience? And what are some of the strategies that you can share with leaders in the retail space?
Yeah. Well, it was certainly not the year that anyone would have expected, and the idea of easing into a role certainly was lost fairly quickly once the pandemic set. And really, we went through a couple of other key things in our business prior to the pandemic onset, including a sizable acquisition. So it wasn't like we sat on our hands from the beginning either. But it really, I think, has challenged everyone. There's no playbook for something like this, and for us, we really had to boil back to staying true to our values and really just figuring out what and doing what needed to be done on a daily basis. Keeping it simple and staying true to our team members. Really, just doing what's right across the board became the kind of the guiding principle. For us, it was really about safety, about communication, and about community at the end of the day. And if we look at it in those three things, first off with our teams, particularly in the stores and with our customers, we recognized real early on that we had to be providing as safe an environment as possible, clearly for both parties on the front lines every day. We were essential retailer providing grocery as well as apparel and general merchandise. And so the responsibility to those communities of remaining open throughout was definitely key. So implementing all of the measures that everybody is now most familiar with, but back in those early days, it was coming at us really left, right, and center very quickly. We established a pandemic response team made up of a very few kind of senior level folks in the business to just drive decision making at a really rapid pace and ensure that we took all the steps necessary to just do what was necessary to secure PPE when it was scarce, or implement put in the plexiglass and around our cashiers, and we were one of the first retailers to require masks before the health units really were pushing that for our associates. Again, all these things leading to providing a safe environment both for them and for each other and for the customers that were coming into our stores. Communication became a challenge, and we had to really focus intentionally on that. We moved our entire office staff, who were very probably heavily office centric, into a totally remote workforce overnight, pretty much when the pandemic was declared. And so that in and of itself proved challenging. I think if we had planned that kind of project, it probably would have had a 6-month rollout, and we had to do it overnight. So you roll with the punches and make things happen. And thankfully our teams were able to respond, and everyone was able to adapt. But we implemented some regular communication points with them and with our store franchise owners and managers and with our DC employees. So we were having weekly webcasts, kind of like this one, where we provide updates on the pandemic, on our response, on issues, questions that they had, each of those different stakeholder groups within our business. And really just because the remoteness forced the usual level of communication, the usual means of communication, just to be impractical, we had to replace them with something else. And for us, that was key in keeping everybody connected, aligned with the priorities, and just executing as we went forward. And then finally, just with our communities, we didn't want to lose sight of our customers and reaching out to them, recognizing it was difficult times for them. And so we implemented a few different things for them over the course of the pandemic, whether it was some thank you session, live stream concerts, or some home experts or celebrity cooking guests that we could do a live stream offering for our customer base, and really just continue to engage with them and keep them front and center, as well as making our support to some of the charities and things that we supported throughout and that we have supported, but not losing sight of the need that existed in those communities and across the country through the pandemic.
You certainly took on a lot of strategies and implementations that you probably weren't otherwise expecting. With respect to the strategies that you've put in place since you became president, do you have any early results from them as a result?
Yeah, well, a couple of areas. Certainly, the pandemic has highlighted and exacerbated a few of those. E-commerce for us continues to be a journey and a direction, but we've accelerated some focus there, and that was necessary, and we have more work to do there. But within the pandemic, that our online presence was certainly called on at a much greater frequency and in much higher demand than previously, and our teams were able to respond and meet that accordingly. I think some of the early actions within, again, the context of the pandemic were to address our inventory and the flow of our products coming into our supply chain. We were just coming into the spring period when you're usually loading in inventory, and we had to do some quick movements to make some quick shifts and adjustments there, really just to help balance to the drastic swings in customer demand in those early weeks across our business, across the different categories of merchandise. The demand really shifted heavily to grocery early on, and so to avoid being stuck with merchandise, we had to make some quick calls and adjustments, and the team really dug in and did some great work there, which then, as the season progressed, certainly played out in much stronger margins and less markdowns than we otherwise might have been hit with had we not taken some of those evasive actions early on. And then I referenced the acquisition we had taken beforehand. I think that's going to be more of a long-term play for us across Western Canada with the stores we acquired there, but also some certainly early positive results from that we've seen.
Interesting. And certainly as we look at the experience that you had with respect to the experiences that you had, we can play Tuesday morning armchair quarterback here. And what things would you do differently now, knowing that we've gone through that you weren't able to address at the time?
I think, on the whole, I would just frame that, I'm really proud of the team and how they have responded and handled the pandemic. So, to go back and start, poking too many holes at what's gone on, I think I'd be pretty hard pressed to do that, because the response in an environment of total uncertainty and like I said before, just no playbook, no precedent to really draw on. It was hour by hour, minute by minute some days, what do we need to do, what's the issue, and just boil it down and get it done. I think if you had to write the script again, I think some additional prep and leanings to move our organization into a more agile operation ahead of time would have proved certainly more beneficial, although people learned that lesson very, very quickly. We just did not have time to act the way you historically would have acted, and things that normally would take quite a period of time to implement had to be implemented overnight, or you were behind, or you weren't providing the safety or the security or the fulfilling the opportunity that was in front of you. So I think that was a lesson that we learned quite quickly going through the pandemic, one that we absolutely don't want to recoil from in any way. We want to really build on and develop as part of our toolkit going forward, is that nimbleness and that agility, and that really rose to the forefront. And hindsight being 2020, if you were really wired that way in the first place, you probably didn't have that hurdle to overcome, in addition to all the pandemic hurdles that were thrown at you. So that maybe be one I'd point to. But I think by and large, very, very proud of the team across the country, from store level through our DCs and supply chain, and through our offices. Really, everyone had to step up and adapt and handle this massive curveball, and come out the other side of it still successful and stronger and prepared for what lies ahead.
I totally agree with you, and having a little closer view than some others around Giant Tiger's progress through this and your leadership through it. I could certainly attest to the great job that you've done around the values and culture of the organization and reaching out to the customers as number one. How have the customers responded to Giant Tiger's response?
Yeah, that's it was interesting really to watch the progression over time I think it was also really encouraging to see the brand, the affinity for the brand, the relationship with our loyal customers kind of be even further grounded and established through this. Some of the brand scores and metrics that we track have been, on the upswing throughout the pandemic. So we take that as, again, kind of positive confirmation that people appreciated the way that we've put their safety first, whether it's through the directional lanes in the store to manage the traffic flow, the managing the checkout lines and the distancing and so on and so forth. But it really just came back to we didn't have all the answers, but we were just trying to do what the right thing was, and keeping our staff and our communities at the forefront, the customer first kind of approach to ensure that if they were only coming in for certain things, that they were front and center and they were in stock as best we could, and that they understood that if we didn't have them, we'd have them as soon as we were able to have them, and that there were some disruptions that were out of our control in terms of the source of supply of some of those really high demand items and those sorts of things. But just the kind of the confirmation that our values resonate with our customers and with Canadians in those communities, and that we're there to serve them and help them. I think just the response from our customers, even some of the token things they were doing for our staff in different stores, or that they were the messages and the words of support and encouragement that were coming back from them, recognizing the frontline workers and really the extension of the frontline workers through the network of our business that exists to allow the frontline to be present and in stock and serving our stores. That was really encouraging and has been very positive throughout.
And as an old friend of mine says, never let a good crisis go to waste. So with that in mind, what are the opportunities that you see for retailers and Giant Tiger, obviously, to continue on this customer-centric journey?
Yeah, it's I think it's staying focused on them, staying true to who we are, and being that authentic. Just keeping the authenticity in what we do, be grounded, be humble, and recognize that we're figuring this out as we go, as much as our customers are, and we're doing as best we can, as much as we can for them. Reinforcing the need to be agile, to be responding as quickly as possible to the shifting customer, understanding that the customer has indeed shifted further faster than the previous curves and expectations absolutely were pointing to, and understanding that that's not likely something that will unravel, or at least unravel very much. In fact, it'll just build and accelerate forward. So, staying abreast of that, ensure that we're geared internally to continue to respond and shift our business accordingly, and stay relevant to the customer, to stay engaged with them in the ways and means that they choose to engage today, out of necessity, out of newfound convenience, etc. I think those are all pieces that we're very focused on and very attuned to right now as we come out of the first round, at least, and move forward as a business.
So let's talk a little bit about leadership, and would you share with the audience a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today as CEO and president of Giant Tiger?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned before, I don't like myself as my least favorite topic, so I'll try to be brief on this one. I've been with Giant Tiger for over 17 years. I came up through the finance and the accounting stream. I was a chartered accountant by trade and training, and then Giant Tiger was a client of the office that I worked in, and I had been assigned to them as a client from my very early days and weeks of employment at the firm. So I had quite a bit of wall time working for Giant Tiger as a client prior to being asked to join the team, and came in on the finance stream, worked through a perpetual inventory conversion in our kind of our back office throughout all of our systems, a good grounding and understanding the way that the business worked. And then over time, just expanded through the finance side of the house to a VP level and to CFO. And in that, really thankful to have had the opportunity that the portfolio was not really just finance. It really extended beyond that through other disciplines like merchandise planning. I had HR for a while, real estate, the distribution center, the supply chain side of our business. And so a lot of opportunity really to understand the business in its broadest sense, always working and connected with the franchise owners and staying abreast of what's going on in the stores. And so then transitioning over into the president's role from there, I felt fortunate to have the opportunity to really build a solid foundation and have established a good understanding of how the business worked and where some of our key opportunities were. From a style perspective, I think it's kind of a work hard, play hard kind of atmosphere to some degree, but really with putting people first and understanding that we're only as good as our team and as the collective effort is. Our business is really one where, as we've said earlier today, kind of doing what's right and being a low-cost operator and being proud of it and being focused on keeping costs out of the business, but at the same time ensuring that we're providing our teams the tools that they need to have to execute on the objectives that we have. We're not we're not competing against lightweights in any way. The retail industry over the last number of years has certainly changed and evolved in Canada, and the players that are left, our direct competitors, are very strong and not sitting still. And so our challenge as a smaller player and a private company is continue to resonate with our customers and stay true to those values that have made us successful in the past, but ensure that we're being agile and staying abreast of the opportunities and the developments that we need to make to be effectively competitive and successful going forward.
And as it relates to leadership, what are the disciplines and models and values that you look for in your leadership team and that you think would apply to other retailers and organizations as well?
Yeah, it's beyond the technical requirements for us. The fit of our leaders within our organization is key. And by that, it could be sometimes very cliched, but ultimately it comes back to the individuals all being able to converse and think as business people first. They can be the subject matter expert, but they need to understand the context of that in the context of the global business that we're operating within. And very much have to be wired in a sense that it's we, not me. And so, those that have been unsuccessful historically within our leadership group, where they just, ultimately decide that it's not a place for them, one of the common elements tends to be those that are focused on themselves and their own egos. Egos have to absolutely be parked at the door, and we operate most effectively as a team when we're challenging one another, but doing it in a positive sense and for collective good and collective benefit. And so those are some of the key traits and disciplines that we really, I'm really thankful that we've been able to build into our team and develop in our team over time.
And I've certainly seen that in your organization and your senior management team. Management styles have certainly changed as a result of the pandemic. Do you see leadership styles having changed?
That's a good question. I think it's maybe aspects of leadership that have had to come to the forefront. Not sure whether it's necessarily stylistic changes, but more perhaps just the prominence of certain aspects. I think the components of empathy, of compassion sprinkled into leadership during these times have been critical in terms of being able to quote unquote rally the troops and keep folks aligned. Everyone's going through challenges. Everyone that's trying to firefight challenges here is dealing with their own challenges on the home front, whether it's with aging parents or ill loved ones or children in schooling and all those sorts of things. And so I think we've had to make sure that we kept those things as part of the forefront. And between that and just the authenticity, I mentioned it earlier, but there's absolutely no opportunity or place, certainly right now, and I don't, I trust never in my own vocabulary or in my own scope of leadership for pretension or for kind of self-promotion. It is, at its core, just ultimately doing what's right and doing it in a humble way to accomplish what you need to be there for. And for us, it's serving our customers and serving our communities, and being focused on that and ensuring that message is what's carried throughout the organization, both from from kind of the demonstrated actions and also the kind of the led or required responsibilities. I think to me are some of the real key underpinnings that I think you can see, and I would draw parallels to even some of our competitors that have been successful through this time frame. You see some of those same kinds of things coming out in what they're doing. I just think it's appropriate in these in light of the circumstances that we're all living through, and those are some of the cooperative elements and the things that you never would have seen before were certainly catalysts in the response. I think some of the industry groups, I know within the retail group, the Retail Council of Canada, the level of support and engagement there from across the industry, I think was noted throughout. And I think that's another example of people kind of, the we're all in this together kind of mindset to some degree that allowed really some more cooperative efforts in identifying the right ways to go after some of the challenges that were thrust upon all of us kind of out of left field.
Great insights. So with respect to the future, I'll ask you to pull out your crystal ball and share some of the scenarios you see likely to unfold over the next 6 months or so in the way consumers behave.
Yeah, well, I'm always in the open market for a clearer crystal ball than my own. So if you happen to come across one for cheap, I'll be all over it. But I think the shift to digital has absolutely been it's been top of mind for years for retail. The acceleration there, the need for the acceleration, the dependency on that in certain markets and in certain sectors of the industry over throughout the pandemic really has been highlighted. So that's something that's a step shift. That's not a temporary blip, absolutely. And so, responding and adapting to that increase, the nice long curve slope lines of percentage of business online forever now will have a substantial notch in them. And that's triggered by COVID, but not something that's going to be a spike and a drop off. It'll be a permanent kind of notch in those curves we're all familiar with seeing. So that's one thing. The pandemic hasn't gone away, so staying abreast of the measures necessary to support the public health initiatives. We've been very, kind of working in lockstep with them around the measures as they got things sorted out and their processes in place. So the safety measures, the precautions, all of those things absolutely will still be in place over the next 6 months. And I think other than that, it's the agility to respond to the ebbs and flows of whatever does come at us, because again, the story is not fully written. There's more chapters yet to be written and to be played out in this scenario. And we absolutely need to be prepared to continue to adapt and respond to what is coming. So as we look ahead here, numbers have been creeping up or jumping up depending on your perspective over the last month or so, alarming as they are. Holiday is certainly a massive season for retail, and we're expecting this one to be obviously very different than ever before, both from a timing, a pacing of when retail, when the consumer will be shopping, will be undertaking those activities, just recognizing they want to avoid crowds and avoid rushes. But at the same time, there's a lot of retailers that may have kind of quote unquote held on through the summer in anticipation of or in dependence on a strong holiday season. So there'll be, again, some interesting, I think, results to watch and implications that play out perhaps early in the new year after that, depending on how the season plays out. We're watching very closely the levels of government support that have been injected into the marketplace with the CERB ending and the enhanced EI coming into play. Is there a sizable gap there that folks fall through? Does that affect disposable income, discretionary spending through the holiday period, or are there enough underpinnings in those programs to help offset that as an impact on just the overall consumer spend in general? The patterns are going to be totally different. Normally speaking, there'd be a lot of snowbirds that would be off to the States, where they're not likely to be. So if they're home, are they spending more? Does that impact spending in some way? People are going to be entertaining broad groups less. So does that impact their home decor? Does it enhance their home decor because now they're going to be home more? There's a myriad of scenarios that will play out, and so the crystal balls are working overtime in terms of the preparedness. But it comes back to agility. It comes back to taking a bit of a position, but being prepared for that position to need to be adjusted or responded to in short order, and maintaining as much of that flexibility as possible going forward.
And with respect to inventory and merchandising, forecasting is certainly difficult going into next year. You have much longer lead times for the non-grocery products. What are you telling the merchants to plan for next year? How are you managing that as a management team to navigate through the potential scenarios for next year?
Yeah, the number of scenarios is much higher than it ever would have been before. I think what we've been doing as a team collectively is really just twofold. One, taking a fairly conservative slant on the long-term commitment side, to allow us a little more flexibility. So for our business, we are able, in certain categories and certain sectors, to have a portion of our purchases come from in-season opportunities, and to be able to buy a little closer into the, again, in the apparel and in the general merchandise categories, some of them at least. And so in those parts of our business, we would take a little more conservative approach to the long-term bookings, and then a more aggressive approach trending in season as things play out, as certain areas light up. I mean, goodness, when we forward planned our puzzle and game category for March, April, and May, we certainly wouldn't have been anticipating pandemic impacts on puzzles, and puzzles being a thing to the extent that physiotherapists were dealing with puzzle neck as a diagnosis. So in those cases, we were able to, just go out and go to market in season and try to respond to that category, whereas other categories that we had pulled back on never materialized because those seasons or those scenarios just weren't feasible in this circumstance. So it's a balancing act. We don't purport to have the right answer, but we're trying to figure our way through it as best we can by, not putting all our eggs in one basket. Certainly not betting long, taking a bit of a chance on chasing categories that we need to chase closer to season and respond in that way as the world continues to shift around us.
I know certainly it's you have put a tremendous amount of emphasis on communication with your head office being remote now, all your admin staff being remote. How do you increase learning, monitoring, and communication for people who are now working remote when they were all in the same office before?
Yeah, that's that has been one of the challenges that we've really been focused on from the outset. It's the webinars that we ran were really initially focused on just questions on, what does this mean? How does this work? How long are we going to be out? All of those sorts of things. And then as time's gone on, and we've continued to as part of our communication cycle, ensure that we've established pulse surveys with our staff and really been evaluating their needs, their concerns. We supported them. One of the things they highlighted were their home working spaces. So then we introduced some support and some opportunity to help them out there as they were needing to outfit with a chair or with a desk or something in those ways. So we offered some support for them there early on. And that then has shifted now to, what kind of communication are you looking for? How are you feeling, even just on the focus on a mental health and well-being side, and tracking that periodically over every 6 weeks and measuring and monitoring that, understanding their propensity to want to come back to an office or not, and monitoring those sorts of things. We have a new office under construction that had been in place before the pandemic hits. Thankfully, that'll provide us more space to spread folks out once it's available than our current space. We adapted our current space into a hoteling scenario for folks to come in that needed to come in to get either a break from being at home, or they needed to come in and collaborate in a appropriately distanced manner with a couple of coworkers for maybe product line reviews, for example, and sometimes it is necessary to see things and work together in those senses. But it really was the regular communication, and it has continued to evolve and will continue to evolve through providing, other updates on parts of the business, or whether it is into training and so on. Onboarding is one of the toughest elements, certainly in this kind of environment where, again, we were very much geared to an office environment. So when you're dealing with folks in an office setting, and onboarding them virtually, that creates a whole other layer of challenge. But thankful to say we've been able to, again, kind of figure that out. I'm sure through the grace of a couple of new hires, as they've been the test subjects as we've worked through some of the bumps and kinks there. But again, it comes back to just being agile and adaptable and responding to the needs of in that case our staff base, our office staff base. But we're doing the same in our DCs with our folks there, and with our trucking fleet, and keeping a pulse at store level as well, and really trying to respond accordingly and into whatever the needs are as they arise, because they keep changing.
And it's no secret that discount and value retailers have done well recently. We've seen the public results anyway. What's your perspective on this? How's it going to change going forward, for the better, for the worse?
Look, I think discount is still, from our perspective at least, a real good place to be in the retail spectrum. We've absolutely seen growth and development and enhancements really across the competitive set in this sector of retail over the last little while. When economic times are a little tougher, certainly there's some trade down aspect into the discount sector. So anticipate that the economy is going to be probably weaker before it's stronger again as we come through this one way or another, and what triggers that and how. But I think in periods of economic uncertainty, and I think Canadians just are wired in general to be deal seekers and like to get more for less and save money where possible. So, discount, really one of the sectors. You've seen the bifurcation of retail. I don't think that's any secret. We've seen but I think as much as that attests to, a dichotomy of value, I think it also reflects just where innovation and development have taken place over recent years. The retail sector in the kind of the middle ground was probably where the least amount of innovation and development occurred over the last 5 to 10 years, whereas discount was building out its presence and doing so in ways to accommodate those lower price points and provide the value to the customer. The upper end maybe made some different enhancements and innovations using technology in a way that their margins and price points may be able to afford, but the middle ground was probably a little less, a little behind the curve perhaps on the innovation side. And I think that as well has led to the kind of the polarization, if you will, within retail. And so, we're happy with where we're positioned. It's a very competitive space, getting more competitive every day. So we've got to, continue to up our game. But I think Canadians, like I say, they love great value every day, and that's aligns really well with what our value proposition is, what we like to provide to our customers every day across grocery and apparel and general merchandise. So we're both online and in store, and we continue to build out our capabilities really on both channels as we develop and move forward.
In looking at the consumer trends, are you seeing differences through generations or age groups?
I think we have seen some different shifts at different rates, if you will, over the last little while. The shift in our older consumers to online has been much greater than certainly ever before. Our younger generations, what they're buying and what they're focused on has shifted, because from a generation that was very kind of service oriented, consume kind of as you go, they're now having to go back to the basics of cooking at home and doing family driven activities collectively. You can't go out and do as many things out and about, so it's and we've seen that play out in our categories and what's been selling for us across the generations. But when you have puzzles and yeast, two pretty nondescript items in the normal course of time, if those start to bubble up your top seller list, that things are changing a little bit in the environment around. And for us, the older consumer and their shift online, I think there's no secret they were likely the laggards previously. Pandemic has absolutely accelerated that group as well. I think they still have their their preferences and their capabilities, but at the same time, I think the necessity of staying safe has allowed them to explore it, and for us that just more opportunity, but again reinforces the need to make it simple and make it easy for anyone to shop us in whatever way they choose, and so that's the demographics continue to shift. We watch them closely, but those are some of the things that we've seen over the last 6 months at least.
And I want to add a question from the audience, which was, if you had a magic wand or a direct line to the top leadership in government, what would you request of them to help retailers across Canada as we continue through this COVID era?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think in fairness, the government response, they didn't have a playbook really for this either. And they've done a lot of what they had to do kind of on a knee-jerk basis. I think what and I think they did a reasonable job. And I think, as I mentioned before, the RCC and their involvement, they were very active with government as some of these programs were introduced and as they were put forward. One of the challenges early on, I think that existed was the support was for very drastic swings, and there was maybe a lot of potential opportunity in the midpoints for businesses that maybe didn't have to close entirely, or that didn't suffer a 70% decline, but maybe were still suffering declines, and those declines were still significant. So I think at this point, if I were to ask anything, I think it's really for government to stay abreast as well, and be much more nimble, but also clear and simple with the programs that they put out. Again, not speaking disparagingly of what was there, but them underpinning the consumer and their ability to to still be supported if their jobs were lost or their businesses were closed. That's really the best support to retail overall, I think, is keeping the consumer active, allowing them to continue to have some discretionary ability to spend, not out of the realm of reasonableness by any means, but that continues to support retail broadly, is just if people still feel secure and have that consumer confidence to continue to buy. I think reinforcing the supporting Canadian retailers would be one aspect that I would like to see them trumpet a little bit more. I think the online channel absolutely is exploding, but that also brings with it the opportunity for folks to shop outside of Canada more readily. And I think we're seeing in some local areas it is the smaller local Canadian retailers, maybe the Main Street retailers, if you will, in some of the smaller areas that are more heavily impacted, and there's probably some opportunity there.
And certainly you've had to grow leaps and bounds in online shopping and managing buying online and picking up in store as well. How is your marketing going to change going forward as a result of this? Are you going to open up more digital channels to the consumers as well now that you're speaking to them online?
Yeah, that goes back to I mentioned earlier about engaging with them where they are. And I think we had to pivot very early. One of the things that we had to adjust very quickly in our business because of that was both the focus, but also the tone of the marketing activity. So historically you follow general patterns and paths, and seasons follow seasons, and people generally do similar things in similar seasons. Well, your marketing messages about getting together with friends for Easter dinner, or going to the cottage with the group, or those kinds of things, you had to all of a sudden tailor them to be respectful of the circumstance. So we had to make some quick shifts early on. I think though, going forward, the digital engagement really has to ramp up across the board, and we're continuing to explore that. That's a much different realm, a different cost base to deal with from a competitive set, even just in capturing the attention of the customer, because it's a bit more of a bidding war than it is a static. Price of a flyer is pretty consistent across the board for any retail. A little bit of volume play on that, but when it comes to placement of digital ads or banners or those sorts of things, it does become pretty much an online auction, and so deeper pockets go further, and that proves challenging for a discount retailer, a value retailer like ourselves. So we have to just, again, be smarter, find ways to ensure that that we're engaging our customers most directly. We're leveraging our loyalty program, GTVIP, that allows us to communicate really directly with our most loyal customers and continue to build out that relationship. And those kinds of channels, I think, are where you'll see more expansion and development of spend and engagement over time. There'll be some digital mass activity for sure, through whether it's e-flyers or through Instagram and social media and other places. But the longer you go, the best pipeline is when you're talking directly to a customer that and you can provide relevant context to them in what's being provided and offered. And so that absolutely is the direction that we continue to move forward in. We're real pleased with how our GTVIP program has taken off as we launched it over the past year or so. And so we're continuing to build that out and roll that out to more consumers across the country.
Yeah, great job on that as well. With respect to operating costs, the challenge of having e-commerce grow as quickly as it has, really for the vast majority of retailers, has been a huge challenge to managing their operating costs. What do you see happening going forward on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Single biggest shift to the economics of retail, easily in a generation, probably longer. It just, again, drives us to having to be smarter, to think through our business and our operations, to challenge some of those core processes or approaches. So we have to look at the business as a whole, and that's another channel that has to be absorbed. Clearly not as profitable a channel given the incremental costs associated with online operations, including the shipping aspect and the competitive pressures on those parts of the business. But for us, again, you got to look at the whole model. So challenge ourselves as to where can we be more efficient overall? How do we ensure that we're buying merchandise, flowing it through our business as effectively as possible, and just giving ourselves as much profit margin through the core business as we build out the other side as well, and just help insulate the overall performance. So it's absolutely a challenge, absolutely a area of focus for us. But we do see it really in that way, that it's not a one or the other for us. It's a both. We have to enhance our online capacity and capability, but at the same time round out our business model and dig into it and transform some of the ways that we do things that we've done for years in our bricks and mortar business, to be able to encapsulate the e-com sides. You're not doubling up costs that you can do once. You absolutely want to do them once, and just drive the overall profitability of the business as a whole.
And any thoughts on how you're preparing differently for the upcoming holiday season?
Yeah, it's been a mix of adjusting the timing for the expectations of Black Friday can't be a big one-day thing. We used to do a We have done for a number of years a big friends and family event where you invite a whole lot of customers into your store on one evening and have a special event. You can't do that kind of thing clearly in this environment. So recognizing, the customer patterns are going to be different. It's then responding in both merchandising and in marketing, and preparing as best possible, but at the same time, having a little bit of dry powder available to turn to if things, turn one way or another early on. And so it's really drilling that sense of agility, of responsiveness into the team, and monitoring things very closely to, are they playing out as we expect? What's different? What can we do differently? And how do we move forward that way? So, it's moving away from those big kind of point in time events to spreading it over time a little bit further, and just again trying to differentiate in a crowded market space through this time frame is the objective and is a challenge for us.
And as we look forward, what can we expect from Giant Tiger in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, well, it's I think we see lots of great opportunity for us as a business. Lots of challenge, lots of change still to be implemented. Lots of change required for us as we build out our online capacity at gianttiger.com, but also as we reinforce the strength of our bricks and mortar business, because those are still playing a key role in retail. For sure, the online side will continue to build and grow, but the core bricks and mortar business will still be there, and we have to ensure the long-term profitability and sustainability of that. And so with the focus goes back to the customer, and it's serving them, providing great value, outstanding value on great products every day through apparel and general merchandise and across our grocery offering for them, and doing that with a smile and engaging with our communities as best we can across the country, just to remain an engaged and a very relevant part of their lives. And for us, we see great opportunity in that, more opportunity online, and in other markets we're not serving yet with physical stores. We still see some opportunity there, but again, all back to where can we serve the customer and where can we do it profitably. So that's what we're aiming for as we move ahead.
Well, Paul, I think you have really shared some great insights with us today. It's really been a privilege and a pleasure to have you chatting with our community here. I really appreciate it. Any final thoughts or words for us?
No, look, thanks very much, David, for having me today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and working with you over the years. I think these are challenging times for everyone. I just reiterate how proud I am of the teams within Giant Tiger across our business, from our franchise partners and our managers in store level to across our DC and across our office personnel, both in Montreal and in Ottawa, and all the staff in between, and just their efforts, from the front lines to keeping the front lines going really throughout have been very, very much appreciated. Have been very special to witness, and has made me very proud to be able to be in this position to kind of watch it happen, and to see that effort multiplied across the country. And so our customers, keep checking us out online or visiting your local store. We're there, and if we can do a better job, let us know how, and we'll keep trying to do that.
And join GT VIP as well, as I have. It's great to follow. This is really terrific. And Paul, thank you for your leadership insights. We at the Poirier Group have been really honored to be able to work with you over the last few years, and been able to see firsthand not only your leadership, but the values and the culture that the Giant Tiger team have built. And we wish you continued success through the remainder of this year and in the years to come.
Well, thank you very much
for your time.
Thanks very much.
Thanks both Paul and David, and I see some other questions are coming in, so we'll do our best to answer them afterwards as well. But please continue to keep in touch with us by following us on LinkedIn or email us with any other questions. Thanks everyone for joining again, and stay safe and have a good week.